I made a lot of mistakes on my first BDR last year, and I'm hoping that maybe you don't have to. Got out last year on my first BDR, did a week on the Washington BDR. We had a lot of adversity on that trip, but I guess I'm in some ways vaguely thankful for that because I learned a ton. And so my approach to my second BDR, which is the Oregon BDR we're leaving for in a couple weeks, is very, very different this year. And so I wanted to share, for those of you who might be curious, either on your going out on your first BDR, maybe your second or third or whatever, things I'm doing differently this time. Now, it's not going to make sense for everybody to do exactly what I've done, but hopefully you can avoid some of the mistakes I made, whether you're going out on a BDR or just a general multi-night moto camping off-road riding experience. The first thing I'm doing differently this year is pretty obvious, but I'm taking a different motorcycle. This is my Honda CRF 450L build that I'm dubbing the BDR Slayer because I built it specifically for the purpose of taking it on BDRs. This is a very different bike than the Norden 901 that I took last year on the Washington BDR. Now, I'm not saying that the Norden was incapable. In fact, I got through just fine. We skipped the one super hard section, but did everything else, every mile of the BDR, and I got through even the hard parts, but it was more challenging than I was expecting. And my buddy Tim was on his 500 EXCF, and I just spent the whole time realizing how smart it was to be on the most capable bike possible and carry the least amount of gear possible. So I spent the last year building this CRF 450L, and it's going to be my BDR go-to bike from now on. Big part of that is because Oregon is one of the most difficult BDRs. Top 3 according to my buddy Nathan, who was the co-architect of the route. So nobody knows better than him, so I just want to be prepared for anything. Also, there's a lot of sand on this route, and I'm just a lot more comfortable in the sand on a dual sport than I am on an adventure bike, as most of you know. Starbucks says hi. I have a completely different philosophy this year too, and I've talked about this in my 8 things I learned on the BDR trip, but this is not a camping trip, and I'm not thinking of it as a camping trip at all. I'm not taking things that I took last year to have fun or be super comfortable or have options at camp. I'm taking the minimal amount of camping gear that I need to be able to sleep comfortably, get up, get back on the bike, and ride. Completely different philosophy because I've learned that I don't need to take a bunch of luxuries and what-if items, and I also know that I can acquire items along the way. This is not a ride-to-camp trip, it's a camp-to-ride trip, and those are 2 very different things. The number 3 thing I'm doing differently this year is a much lighter loadout. Last year I had 3 ways to cook, just in case I wanted to cook a steak or whatever. None of that this year, just the jet boil. It's funny, one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got last year was, that's too much weight, you're never gonna make it. Well, I made it. I had 85 pounds of gear. It's too much gear. But I did make it. So it's not like it's impossible, it's just slightly more difficult. But this year I definitely wanted to go a little lighter. I think I have about half as much gear this year as I had last year. Part of that is necessary because I'm on a different bike, so I've got a lot less space here in the Coyote bag than I had in those round the world panniers. Part of that different philosophy, part of that lighter loadout is not having actual panniers. With this rackless saddlebag, I do not need pannier racks, that saves weight. I've also got a lot less space, which doesn't then encourage me to fill up the extra space, right? In fact, I had to pull things out of this. I have a lot less space this year, 40 liters here and not even 20 here, so about 60 liters versus last year I had 150. So about a third of the space that I had last year, and that was purposeful because I don't want to feel obligated to fill that space with gear. And I also have a lot fewer just-in-case items. I've always been a take just-in-case items camper. That makes a lot of sense in a car or even on a bike with big, big panniers, but this trip it's either OSP, on-site procurement if you need something, acquire it along the way, or improvise and figure out a way. And that's one of the joys of going with other people is knowing that you'll have different brains to help you figure things out and also different sets of stuff. I've still got my full tool kit, at least my tire changing kit and all of that, but I'm taking a lot less just-in-case non-essential items. Another thing I'm doing this year differently, and this is cheating and some of you are gonna roll your eyes hard, but I'm not riding there. Well, I'm actually getting my wife to come with me. We're gonna camp at the beginning of the route at the Crane Hot Springs, and then I'll ride down with the boys the following morning to get on the route. We're gonna take the 4Runner, and I'm not gonna ride the bike the 5 hours to the beginning of the route. Now, some of you purists may say that's not cool, whatever, to each their own. I always say ride your own ride, and I recommend that you do the same, but I like the idea of starting fresh, being well rested and clean because I'm going to be stuck in the woods for 5 days without access to a shower. I like being close to the beginning of the route. The idea of riding 6 hours there and then being tired when you start sucks to me. So if you can avoid it, and it's not always possible, if you're close enough to get a ride there or figure it out, then I recommend it. That's what I'm going to do this year. I know it's not for everybody. It's going to be cool to be able to wake up, take a shower, and get on the road the first day. It's not like you're not still riding the route. Riding the route is what matters. If you can find a way to either get a ride there somehow or get there and at least stay in like a hotel the first night, highly recommend that, just because being able to sleep well and start fresh is important to being successful on the route, in my opinion. Number 5 thing I'm doing this year is I know the route a lot better. Cheating, again, because we're in my home state, and so I've already ridden parts of this route, but I've also done a lot more research, watched a lot of videos, spent a lot of time on Google Maps looking at things, and I was able to get out and scout sections of the route to find potential campsites just the other day. Washington, I'd watched a lot of videos, but I was surprised multiple places. The washouts in Section 3 took me completely by surprise. The only super hard section I knew about was Babyhead Hill. I didn't know about Clayman Mountain. I didn't know about the washouts in Section 3, and so I wasn't prepared for them mentally when I arrived at those things, and I'm not going to have any surprises this year, so I've done a lot more research. I know the route a lot better. I know what's coming, mostly. I mean, there's going to be surprises, but I'm excited to try the expert sections and do all that. So the number 5 thing I'm doing this year, I know the route a lot better, and that's important. Number 6, my planning is much better. Last year I threw a bunch of crap in a bag and hoped for the best. This bag and this bike is loaded up right now because I'm going out on a shakedown run with my exact setup tonight and tomorrow night, 2 weeks before we actually go on the route. So I am going to define and refine my setup by actually getting out and testing it ahead of time. That planning piece is better. I booked us a campsite halfway along the way where we can stop and hopefully like take a shower. It's at a state park. That's what I'm hoping for, fingers crossed. It's gonna have to line up on the days we get there, and if it just doesn't line up, we get there early or late, whatever, we'll just camp in the woods. But I plan that, and like I said, the other thing I plan better is the night before we're going to be staying at a place where I can take a shower and hit the road fresh and clean. And number 7 thing I'm doing differently this year on my second BDR is maybe a little bit more intangible, but I am 1,000 times more relaxed this year. Part of that is the experience, having done it before. Part of it is I'm a more experienced and more capable rider. Part of that is I have a better bike. But when you live with anxiety, like I do, it is really difficult to enjoy things in the moment. And I can say honestly that I was not enjoying the trip last year, other than when we stopped for the night and we're looking at a beautiful view or something. But I spent the whole time just anxious about what was coming because I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know if we were going to come across something that was too difficult for me or whatever along the way. We also had a lot of adversity last year. I had a guy break his leg, another guy dropped out, so we started with 6 and ended with 2. I should be more nervous that that's going to happen again, but I think we used up all of our bad luck last year. My point is, good preparation, good planning is going to make you a lot more relaxed, and I'm hoping that I can relax, enjoy the scenery, take it a little slower, because the other thing was like, once people started dropping off, I was really focused on just getting done. I wanted to complete it successfully, and we did not stop and look at anything on Section 1, because I was like, we're close enough, let's just get done today, and we pushed through. So I'm hoping to have time to stop and smell the roses, be more relaxed, and I feel like going in, I'm definitely a lot less anxious this year, so that is the 7th thing I'm doing differently. I feel a lot more relaxed going into this year's BDR. I know that some of that stuff is kind of intangible, so take it however you will because every person is different, but as I'm processing and loading up and thinking about this year, it just occurred to me that the approach is very different, and I just want to make a video to share it with all of you in case you're planning your first or your second or your third or your 100th BDR trip or multi-night overnight camping trip. Maybe there's something there that can help you shift your thinking or at least think about something that you hadn't thought about before. I learned a ton on my first BDR trip last year. In fact, I made a video about that, so if you want to know exactly what I learned and the revelations I came away with right after the trip ended, check out the 8 things I learned on my first BDR trip video. There are some things you just don't know until you know them, and I'm hoping this year I'm better prepared because of that, but I'm sure there's a ton of stuff I don't know right now that will be even better, and I'll be even more prepared for my third BDR. If you have any questions, thoughts, feelings, what did you learn on your first BDR, your first multi-night motorcycle camping trip? Let me know in the comments, let the people know in the comments. But for now, and as always, I just want to say thank you very much for watching, and please do not forget to be excellent to each other. Thank you.
Excellent!
Chichi boy. Thanks for coming back when I called you. I did not know where you were. I don't like it when I don't know where you are. It's bad.